Let's talk about what's new for the 2023 Porsche Macan. They have given you the adaptive cruise control as standard for all the trim levels. And speaking of trim levels, the Porsche Macan T is now a new trim that you can select, which is a sporty 4-cylinder option. That's going to come standard with the Sport Chrono package, the adaptive Porsche suspension, also known as PASM. But that's pretty much all of your changes for 23, because all of the major changes and refreshes happened in 2022. That's when you got the new front bumpers, the new headlights, taillights, etc. And personally, I really like the way this SUV looks. It almost has like this jewelry-esque presence out on the road with these LED headlights and the massive 21-inch wheels that you see here on this test model. This is a $70,000 4-cylinder Macan. Very expensive, I know. But that's the thing with Porsches. The options is what really inflates the price of these vehicles. These 21-inch wheels, they are $3,100, which is absolutely insane. I would rather just pay $2,100 and get the 20-inch wheels. You'll get a slightly better ride, and you're saving $1,000. The other major change that Porsche made in 2022 was with the various trim levels and the powertrains. They've gotten rid of the turbo trim level, and they have essentially given the turbo power plant to the GTS model, which is now the flagship Macan, and the S models now get the GTS power figures, right? So we have 375 horsepower with the S and 434 horsepower with the GTS model. I just want to let you know, personally, I would rather go with the S trim level, because the way you see it here, this is already $70,000. When I spec'd out various Macans, yeah, it was around 72 for a 4-cylinder all-wheel drive, and the T model was $75,000, and an S model was around $82,000. These Macans are around 20 G's more expensive than the equivalent 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder BMW X3s and Audi Q5s. The reason for that is because this is the no compromise compact SUV in its class, and that's why it's the most expensive. I'll just share with you one last thing. I did partner up with a company known as AutoCompanion. They can help you get up to 7% off MSRP on a new Porsche Macan order, so I'll talk more about that towards the end of this video. But for right now, let's go ahead and let's transition over into the driving segment, because many people seem to say that this is not a real Porsche. Let's see if there's some merit to that. Okay, let's put this into the sport mode, get into the manual. Okay, let's see if this is real or fake. I mean, for a fake Porsche, it's got some real performance. Brakes, that feels real. Let's see how this turns in. Yeah, it feels pretty real to me. I've been driving like an idiot with this SUV for my entire 1 week that I've been testing this. Why? Because this thing is bending corners at 80, 90 plus miles an hour effortlessly. I mean, it's not even exciting to do that in this SUV. It just does it casually, like it's just normal for it. Okay. And it's doing all that with the fake 4-cylinder engine, made it to this fake PDK 7-speed dual clutch. Okay. It produces a fake 261 horsepower and a fake 295 pounds-feet of torque. It's also got some fake suspension, double wishbone front suspension, and a multi-link rear. But this fake Porsche will spank most real sports cars. This is taking the best attributes of X3, Q5, GLC Benz, and it strips away all of the negatives. We have impeccable BMW type handling here without breaking your back. Okay, we have the smoothness and the refinement of the Audi Q5 with some subtle character injected to it, similar to the Mercedes GLCs, right? This Macan is embracing its turbo nature pretty well. Okay, you get some subtle blow-off effects, you know, when you get off the throttle, and it makes a satisfying farting effect when you upshift in this, as I demonstrated earlier. So that's cool. That is fun. But it pretty much ends there. As I mentioned before, it still feels pretty empty, pretty soulless, because, you know, it is hyper capable. As you saw, it gives you a high sense of security when you drive it. But once again, it's so casual, it's so normal for this SUV to do that, right? You just stick it in there. There's no body roll with it. The vehicle just does what it does, and then you go home and you park it. You know, the only other vehicle that I've tested that has the same level of capability as this Macan is the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, but that vehicle does things in a totally different way. You don't just take it around corners. The Alfa dances around corners, and if you've driven an Alfa Romeo, you know what I'm talking about. I tested the Stelvio out on the Tail of the Dragon road, and it was so impressive. Both the Stelvio and the Macan would tear up a road like the Tail of the Dragon easily. But despite the additional character, I would obviously the Porsche is still the higher quality product here. You know, the Alfa, it's still that FCA or that Stellantis, whatever they're called now. You know, it's a sketchy build quality. You know, this actually has a high quality manufacturing process, has great dealer support, and has phenomenal resale value as well. So even though the price point of these Porsches are typically higher, the resale value is really amazing. This SUV weighs 4,151 pounds. Granted, all of the SUVs that this competes with weighs over 4,000 pounds. You wouldn't really expect that looking at it, because this is, it's like a tiny little hatchback, if you will, just slightly lifted up. But yeah, all of these SUVs, they weigh over 4,000 pounds. With the Macans, you get all-wheel drive as standard. But again, when you take it around corners, it feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds less, right? It feels like something that weighs 3,000 pounds when you drive it. Very impressive. Brakes are perfect. You know, they feel appropriate. Same thing with the steering. Nothing about this is over boosted or ridiculous like what BMW typically does. Okay, it doesn't have a back-shattering ride. When you get on the brakes in this SUV, you know, you're not being shot through the front windshield, but the stopping power is absolutely there. Another thing that makes this SUV so dangerous is you don't even feel the speed. That's also stripping away from the excitement when you drive this SUV hard. I'm not exaggerating here. When you're doing 45 miles an hour in the Macan, it genuinely feels like you're just sitting still at a parking lot. It doesn't even feel like you're moving. You have to be doing 15, 20 miles an hour over the speed limit all the time for you to feel like you're going at a normal pace. Like, I had some people doing 50 in front of me, and I was like, why are these people going so slow? But in reality, they were breaking the speed limit and doing 5 over. But it feels too slow in the Macan. And regarding the ride quality, yes, I said it's pretty good, but these are the 21-inch wheels. When you go over the broken roads, you kind of feel that, or you notice it a little bit more. And I feel like if you got the smaller 20-inch wheels, that would help with the ride quality, help smoothen it out. If you wanted the maximum ride quality, you could get the 19-inch wheels for the smoothest possible ride. And that's another change that they made for the 2022 and up refresh. They made the wheel sizes 1 inch larger than the previous model years. But the suspension tuning is still masterful. I mean, you expect there to be a subtle amount of stiffness with the chassis and with the ride quality. That's just to be expected to have this hyper capable handling. So I think you get the point. The car is flawless. Okay, there's nothing to complain about. Even the lack of character, most normal people, they're not even going to understand or know what I'm talking about here. So for most people, when they get in here, you're going to respect and love driving this, because you're going to notice and understand on a day-to-day basis that you are whipping a very high quality, well-engineered product. But I still maintain, if you're going to purchase this, get the S model. Okay, when it comes to the engine, leave your lack scarcity mentality behind, okay? You're buying a Porsche, you're not just buying this so you can have what you need, okay? Yes, the 4-cylinder is all you need, technically. All you need is 2 legs and a bus pass, and you can just take the bus to your destination. That's all you technically need in life. You buy a Porsche product to get an automotive driving experience that's above the norm. And to be above the norm, you need an above the norm engine. You know, that S model, I think that's perfect with 375 horsepower. You know, again, Car and Driver tested that thing at 3.8 seconds with the Sport Chrono package. I mean, that's literally supercar performance. And 10 Gs is what's stopping you from getting that engine. Whether you use it or not is besides the point. Engines hold value better than options do. The options on this are ridiculous, overinflated. I can understand if you would want to skimp out on certain options. That makes sense, you know, and use that money to get the S trim level, okay? But even as I was speccing out various Porsche Macans on the website, I tried to get a pretty desirable one. That included the premium package, which is around $3,600. I got the thermally insulated glass, which will help this SUV be even quieter than what it is now. It's not 100% necessary, but it's $990. I figured I would just throw it in there. Other options, I did go for the Sport Chrono package for the base Macans and the S models. You could skip it if you wanted to, because we don't have the Sport Chrono here, and it's not like you're missing out on anything. But it is, when you get a Porsche, there are certain options that are very desirable, especially in the used market. So that's what I'm saying. Certain things you might not need, but when you go to sell the vehicle, it's going to help with your resale value. And that's going to be Sport Chrono, getting the Bose audio system, the premium package with the 14-way adjustable seats, LED headlights, etc. I did not option in the surround view camera or the 360 camera. That's a $1,200 option. That is so insane for a 360 camera. But apparently many people purchasing a Porsche would like to see that. I don't care if they want to see that particular option, because this tiny little hatchback, I don't need a freaking 360 camera to park this. I'll back up a semi-truck blindfolded. So I just thought that was insane. But I did pay the extra $280 to get the heated steering wheel. That was an option. And that's how I came to the $72,000 4-cylinder, $75K T-trim, and the $82,000 S. I would skip the GTS all day long because that's insane. I'm not going to pay 6 figures for a Macan. That's just not necessary. But I'll talk more about leasing and financing during the conclusion segment. Let's go ahead and let's transition over into the interior. All right, now that we are stopped, let's go ahead and talk about this interior space. So in 22, the Macans did get a newly revised interior space. We now have here this analog clock up top here as standard for all the Macans. And of course, the center stack now has this gorgeous gloss black finish on it, which surprisingly, I know many people hate this, rightfully so, but this is better than what you would think. Okay, I do like the haptic feedback system that they have implemented here. Both Porsche and Audi, they do this with certain models, and now for all the Porsche products, they're going to be utilizing this touch haptic gloss black finish. The way this works is you really have to press down on these various touch haptic buttons here as if it were a real button. I do like that. Once you get used to it, that's okay. And honestly, this material, they've done a good job in the way that they have coated this, because it doesn't really attract fingerprints. Not really anyway. I'm just going nuts with this, and yeah, the fingerprints are not showing up. However, the thing that I don't like about this gloss black finish is the fact that the dust particles do show up, but that you can easily wipe away with a microfiber cloth. But the main issue I have is how reflective it is. In harsh sunlighting, it can be a little difficult to see the various touch haptic buttons here. So that's your Primary change here with the center stack, we have here a 10.9-inch infotainment screen with standard wireless Apple CarPlay. No mention of wireless Android Auto, they just mentioned wireless CarPlay. And I do like this screen. It's easy to use, logically laid out. I don't have a problem with the screen itself or how it works. It's got a very fast processor in it, so it's pretty snappy, but I'm having some Apple CarPlay glitches going on. Sometimes the music doesn't play through my Apple CarPlay and it's just playing the Miley Cyrus or the whatever is on the pop radio at that time. It's just playing that and I'm not being able to play my music, okay? It just kind of remains stuck there. And at other times when I try to select the next song, either through the touchscreen or through this button here to select the next track, sometimes it doesn't work. The fix for that, typically when you just disconnect and reconnect, that does work. All the functions start to work properly again, but that is an annoyance that I have noticed with the Apple CarPlay. Other than that, the screen looks good. Got your classic Porsche dials here with the digital circle towards the right, and that shows you some great information. Granted, that's starting to look a little bit dated now. It doesn't look quite as crisp and as fresh as the infotainment, but for the most part, I don't care. It does a good job of showing you excellent information. Steering wheel wrapped in nice leather, the PDK transmission with these nice metal paddle shifters. Feels very satisfying to use. I like the floating button design that they have going on with the steering wheel buttons here. And once again, if you got that Sport Chrono package, you would get a dial here on the steering wheel with a Sport Plus mode and a subtle boost as well. You get a little boost in power for a few seconds, and that's what enables it to hit 0 to 60 a little bit quicker than non-Sport Chrono packages. You know, it's $1,200 or $1,300. Get it if you need to, but it's not a big deal. It just makes your vehicle a little bit more desirable in the used market. Pretty much all the important safety features do come standard, like the blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, a basic backup camera, which looks very good. But that 360 camera is obviously a $1,200 option, and we don't have that here. They made that adaptive cruise control standard as well, for the 23 models at least. I believe you also get heated front seats as standard as well. And we also have the basic 10-speaker audio system. Initially, I thought this was the Bose, but we don't have the optional Bose here. This is the base 10-speaker, 150 watt. It sounds decent. The Bose will be an upgrade over this, and I definitely recommend you doing that for an additional $990. That's going to be a desirable option. You can get the $5,700 Burmester, and if you love your music, go ahead. But I would say skip it on the Macan, and I'll probably get it on the Cayennes or the Panameras because they are a larger vehicle. They can make better use of the Burmester. But you know, if you're married to the Macan, you like the way it looks, you like the size of it, and you love your music, the Burmester will be that flagship audio system quality, but it's going to cost you a pretty penny. It's going to be a large percentage of the cost of this vehicle if you go with the Burmester, just so you know. The overall interior quality is solid, well built. Everything feels tight, everything feels good, very similar to the Audis as well. And you do have here one-touch up and down windows for all 4 windows. The doors feel super solid when you open and close them. They feel extremely heavy, so that gives you that quality, secure sensation when you're riding in this. I don't think any of the Porsche products were ever tested by IIHS, but we know that the Audi Q5 is a top safety pick plus, so I'm sure this will be pretty much the same. I believe safety is not an issue with these Porsches. That's going to be top tier. But you do have here space for large bottles in the door pockets. I do like that. You have 2 cup holders in the middle here. In general, though, this is not a spacious vehicle, and that's pretty much the biggest con with these Macans is the amount of space that you have. Not just legroom, headroom, but I mean cubby spaces as well. The center armrest is pretty useless. All you can fit in there is a wallet, and that's also where you store your phone, and that's apparently where your wireless charging pad is also going to be. Glove box is okay, and the front headroom, the front legroom, that's okay. You obviously have plenty of adjustability with these 14-way adjustable seats. Seats have great support, great lumbar. You can do a lot of mileage in this. But the rear seats, yeah, that's pretty much, I'm not going to say useless, but it's not a luxurious place to spend time. There's not a whole lot of legroom, and you even have to kind of duck your head if you're over 6 feet tall when you get in the rear because it's kind of sloped back there. But when you go with this premium package, you do get heated and cooled seats in the front, and that will also give you heated seats in the rear. So that's a good luxury touch. But if you're carrying around, loved ones, often grandparents, your regular parents, constantly, then yeah, they're not going to have a fun time in the back. But if you don't care about rear seat, back seat drivers, then yeah, the Macan is going to work fine for you. But the trunk is also going to be restricted. It's not massive, but I think the trunk is okay. That's going to be fine for a Costco run, if you will. You can obviously fold down the seats 40-20-40. That'll give you some additional space. So trunk, I'm not really going to complain about. You do have a spare tire, one of those obvious red spare tires that Porsche likes to put in their vehicles. But overall, I think it's common sense. I think many people already know that the lack of space in here is pretty much the biggest con with the Macan, and you just have to step up to the Cayenne if you need something bigger. And before we conclude, I'll just talk about the fuel economy because I forgot to mention in the driving segment. This 4-cylinder is rated to get 19 city, 25 on the highway with premium fuel. That's actually not that great of fuel economy because the Audi 4-cylinders, they get unbelievable real-world fuel economy, like upwards of 30 mpg in the city or close to it if you're pretty mellow with the Q5. So this a little bit more tuned for performance driving and additional power, I guess. As we saw here, the 4-cylinder is plenty powerful. It feels like the BMW 330i, both of these vehicles hitting way above its numbers. It's because of that sport tune nature, the fuel economy does suffer here. You can kind of beat the highway MPG though. You can get 26, 27, get 2 to 3 mpg better out on the highway, but the city, yeah, it's going to be around 19. And the S model, that's going to be even worse still. It's going to be rated for 17 mpg in the city and 23 out on the highway. So something to keep in mind, but I'm assuming if you have the means to be able to afford this, I don't think you really care. All right, concluding thoughts on the Porsche Macan. Obviously, I do like this SUV. It's a no compromise product. It drives essentially perfectly, but almost too perfect because it masks all the speed from you and you're bending corners at such high speeds, but it does it so casually that it doesn't feel like anything when you drive it, right? But that's not really the main con here, the lack of space. That's what I would consider to be the major con, and some of the Apple CarPlay issues that I experienced. The overinflated options list, that doesn't help either. You're buying a Porsche, you know what you're getting into here with this brand. I believe the average income of a Porsche buyer is like 500 grand. You got 2 dual incomes in the house, close to executive level incomes, right? They can pretty much pay cash for this, no big deal. But the alternatives, if you love to drive, Alfa Romeo, and I guess if you're working on a smaller budget, Acura RDX. I know that's not really something that a Porsche owner is going to cross shop with, but I'm just saying if you're watching this video and you don't have the means to buy a Porsche, the Acura RDX, that's a pretty good choice. Obviously, the drivetrain, the 10-speed auto, the 4-cylinder, it's nowhere near on the level of the German vehicles, but if you love to drive super handling all-wheel drive RDX, probably not going to be the worst choice in the world, and that's actually going to offer more space inside as well, something to keep in mind. Now, towards the beginning of the video, I talked about how I was partnered up with AutoCompanion and how he can help you to save up to 7% off MSRP on a Macan. Well, you can save up to 7% on the base 4-cylinder Macans, and I think you're saving between 4 and 5% on the S and the GTS models. So that's a huge help, but I wouldn't really recommend leasing the Macan. It's pretty expensive at around $1,000 a month for a 70K 4-cylinder model, and it's around $1,200 a month to lease the S model at $82,000. That's primarily because the interest rate is so high on a Porsche lease at 8% interest. You could do a 1-pay lease. You're obviously parting away with a lot of cash, but that can help to bring down the interest rate. But me personally, I think just going with the low interest finance is the way to go on these Porsche products, or even paying cash for this vehicle. That way you can avoid paying all the extra interest, right? And that's because these things do hold their value extremely well. So if you have the means to pay cash, that's one way of doing it. But any way you purchase this, you can qualify for AutoCompanion's discount. They are located in Washington, D.C. They're an automotive broker. They do charge $500 for their service, but you're literally saving $5,000 off MSRP on a new Macan order. So I think it's worth your while, and you can have the vehicle shipped to your home, obviously at your cost, but you're saving so much money, you know, paying the broker fee, shipping the vehicle. I think it's worth it to most people. And there's just no headache, no hassle, because I feel like most Porsche dealerships, they're just gonna sell this to you at MSRP or even above MSRP. So I'll have my link down below. If you sign up with my link, you can take $50 off of their broker fee. But alternatives like the Alfa Romeo, that's a vehicle that AutoCompanion does not represent, but there is another broker, Aranchi, I think is his name. He's got Alfa Romeos. If you're buying an Alfa, don't touch it unless you're getting 10 or 11% off MSRP. That's the only way to buy those things because they crash in value. They're totally worthless. The complete opposite of these Macans. But those lease out for around $700 a month. The RDX is pretty expensive at $750 a month, even with loyalty added to it. So yeah, that's an expensive vehicle to lease. But the Alfa, if you love to drive, that's the cheapest lease option I've been able to find. But that's also going to suffer from a lack of interior space. And obviously the dealer support is not that great, and you're buying a Stellantis product, whereas this is a Porsche. The SQ5 also leases for around $750 a month as well, and that's when you qualify for the Costco $1,000 discount. Audi is a vehicle that AutoCompanion does represent. I do like the SQ5. It does have some exciting turbo noises that it produces, but the transmission performance kind of lets it down for me. The BMWs, the X3 M40i, way too stiff, way noisier than the Porsche and the Audi products. So hopefully you appreciate and found value with all of this information that I have shared with you. This is obviously way more information than what any other reviewer is going to share with you. So if you appreciate that and you appreciate the honesty of these reviews, make sure to subscribe and like these videos. It does help a lot. And with that established, I'll have my next video on the end screen here. Click on it and I will see you there.